I never imagined that spilling a little coffee on the wrong person would cost me 15 years of my life. But that was exactly what happened 3 minutes before I found myself standing in the lobby with a cardboard box pressed against my chest. My name is Josie Marlowe, and one careless collision with the CEO's son had turned my entire career at Harrington West Capital into a spectacle that still echoed in my ears. His voice had carried down the hallway, sharp, privileged, and absolute when he shouted that I was fired. Now I stood where security had politely left me, trying to steady my breathing through the ache in my chest. Inside the box were framed photos of my daughter, a stack of thank you notes from clients, and the pen my mother had given me the day I earned my first promotion. Everything else, my job, my title, my place in this building, had been stripped away faster than I could apologize for a spilled cup of coffee. Then the elevator chimed. Leonard Price, the investor whose $2 billion were supposed to anchor the firm's next expansion, stepped out carrying the same calm warmth he always radiated. He spotted me immediately. "Josie," he said, smiling as if nothing were out of place. "Are we still on for the meeting?" I shifted the cardboard box in my arms. "I'm sorry, Leonard. He just fired me." For a moment, he only blinked, as if processing a language he had never encountered. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed softly, not mockingly, more like a man confirming a suspicion. He reached into his coat, pulled out his phone, and turned the screen toward me. A familiar face stared back. Colton Harrington, red-cheeked and furious, captured at some charity gala. "Is this the guy who fired you?" he asked. My breath caught. Something in his tone, almost entertained, almost relieved, hinted that whatever had happened upstairs was only the beginning. And despite the tightness in my chest, I felt a subtle shift in the air, as if the ground beneath me no longer belonged solely to them. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge. Ada, crafted purely for dramatic narrative and emotional exploration. Leonard lowered the phone slightly, studying me with a seriousness that did not match his earlier laugh, and I knew we were already stepping into territory my former employers never anticipated. 3 hours earlier, I had been hurrying down the corridor with a stack of investor packets pressed against my hip and a fresh cup of coffee balanced in my hand. The morning had already been hectic, and the meeting with Leonard Price meant everything to the firm. I rounded a corner too quickly and collided with a solid body. My coffee splashed forward in a brown arc across a crisp designer shirt. Colton Harrington jerked back as if I had burned him. "Are you kidding me, Josie?" His voice shot upward, sharp enough to freeze the analyst nearby. "I am so sorry, Colton. I should have slowed down." I reached for napkins, but he slapped my hand away. "Do not touch me," he snapped. "You think this is funny? You think you can embarrass me before a major meeting I was preparing for?" "The same meeting?" I said quietly. "Let me get a towel." "I do not want a towel," he barked. "I want you to stop pretending you run this place." I felt the familiar sting of years of him resenting every investor who bypassed him to speak with me. Every moment his father had relied on my judgment instead of his enthusiasm. "Colton, it was an accident. I can fix this." "No," he said, stepping closer, his voice rising with every word. "You cannot fix anything. You do not listen. You undermine me. You walk around like you built this firm." "That is not fair," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He threw his hands up. "Do you know who my father is?" "You are fired, Josie. Fired." Silence rolled through the corridor. People stared, but no one moved. HR arrived within minutes, drawn in by the shouting. "Let us step into a conference room," the HR manager murmured. Colton pointed at me like a judge passing sentence. "Make it official." They did not hand me paperwork, only promises that formal documentation would follow. I nodded because my throat refused to work. Beneath the humiliation, Something hot and sharp was awakening in me. The analysts still watching knew exactly what they had witnessed, even if none dared react. I stood in my office with the door closed, staring at the empty shelves as if they belonged to someone else. My nameplate still sat on the credenza, but everything that mattered now had to fit inside a cardboard box. I picked up the framed photo of my daughter on her first day of college. She had 1 year left, and her tuition payments were due in 6 weeks. I wrapped the frame in a folder and set it inside the box. "This is unbelievable," a soft voice said from the doorway. It was Marcy from accounting. She stepped in and lowered her voice. "He has been trying to push you out for months. Everyone knows it. He just needed something loud enough." "I spilled coffee," I said, forcing a tight smile. She shook her head. "It could have been anything. He wants his friend in your chair." I let out a slow breath. "It is done now." Marcy hugged me quickly, then disappeared before anyone noticed she had stopped by. I kept packing the pen my mother gave me when she could still remember what days of the week meant. The small glass paperweight Leonard once brought back from a conference. The stack of handwritten notes from clients thanking me for protecting their investments. Each item pressed against my chest in a different way. A knock sounded. William, the security guard who had known me since my first day, stepped inside. "Jossie," he said gently, "they want me to walk you out per protocol." "I understand." I nodded toward the box. "Take your time. I will be right outside." When I finally stepped into the hallway, William walked beside me but kept a respectful distance. In the lobby, he paused. "If you need a minute before heading out, no one will bother you." I clutched the box tighter. Meeting the investor now felt impossible, but disappearing without explanation felt even worse. I stood still, unsure, until a familiar voice broke through the noise behind me. "Josie, there you are." I turned, the box still tight against my ribs, and saw Leonard Price weaving through the lobby with his easy stride. He looked at me, then at the cardboard box, and his smile faded. "Jossie," he said softly, "tell me this is not what it looks like." I lowered my eyes. I had been fired this morning, but his voice stayed calm, and something sharp stirred underneath it. "Colton, I spilled coffee on him. He made a scene. HR followed him into it." Leonard let out a slow exhale that sounded more like disappointment than surprise. "I had a feeling something was off," he murmured. "I've been getting mixed messages for weeks. Then someone from the firm sent an email saying today's meeting was canceled." My head snapped up. "Canceled? No one told me that. That is why I came in person." He said, "I wanted to see who was lying to me." The words settled between us, and for the first time since the shouting in the hallway, I felt my spine straighten. "It was not me." "I know," he said. He studied my face, searching for something. "Your work has never been the problem." He paused, then added quietly, "The problem is inside their leadership." I needed to confirm it before I made any decisions. There was no accusation in his tone, only clarity, the kind that comes from putting together pieces he had been collecting long before today. "Walk with me," Leonard said, nodding toward the glass doors. "We should talk somewhere less crowded." I glanced at William, who gave me a small nod as if to say it was all right. Leonard held the door open for me. "Let us step away from all this noise." His voice carried a weight I had not heard before, and I knew he had been keeping more to himself than I realized. Leonard and I crossed the street without speaking. He led me into a small cafe where the noise was low enough that conversation stayed private. We sat in a corner booth, my cardboard box resting beside me like a reminder of everything I no longer had. He folded his hands. "Josie, I did not come here today to finalize anything. I came because Harrington West has been sending up flares for months." I looked at him, unsure what he meant. "There have been abrupt restructurings," he continued, "financial reports that contradict earlier statements. Expansion proposals that appear ambitious on paper, but collapse the moment I ask real questions. Every road leads back to Colton. My breath caught. You think he is manipulating the reports? I think he is desperate to prove he belongs in a room he is not ready for, Leonard said. And that makes him dangerous. He leaned back slightly, studying me. I needed to know whether the firm still deserved a partner willing to place $2 billion under their stewardship. I suspected they did not. I let the words settle. Losing my job had felt personal, but now I could see the larger shape behind it. He did not fire me because of the coffee, I murmured. He fired me because I have seen too much. He is afraid I would warn you. Leonard nodded once, as if that matched his own conclusions. Then he leaned forward, elbows on the table. Tell me what you have observed. Off the record. I hesitated. Loyalty had defined my career. Loyalty to the firm, to the leadership, to the people counting on me. But loyalty had not been returned. I spoke quietly. There are decisions being made that do not align with the health of the company, and they all start with him. Leonard's jaw tightened as he listened. The air between us shifted, heavy with the weight of what he already suspected. Leonard waited, giving me space to decide how much truth I was willing to share. I set the cardboard box on the floor beside me and placed both hands on the table. There are things I never put in writing, I said quietly. Things that would have ignited battles I could not win. His eyes stayed on mine. Start where you need to. Colton has been pushing expansion loans that the firm cannot sustain, I said. I saw proposals for markets we have no foothold in and no research for. When I questioned him, he told me to stay in my lane. Leonard nodded once. He also tried to alter valuation metrics on at least 2 portfolios. I continued. I confronted him after catching inconsistencies. He claimed it was a new model, but the numbers did not follow any accepted methodology. When I refused to sign off, he stopped copying me on internal communications. Leonard's jaw tightened. Go on. There were emails, I said. I was forwarded one by mistake. It laid out a plan to sideline senior staff who did not align with his forward vision. I was at the top of that list. Leonard let out a slow breath. And he wanted you to adjust investor communications. I finished. Tone down the risk disclosures, push optimism, skip details until after commitments were secured. His expression hardened. That confirms more than you realize. I frowned. What do you mean? Another investor pulled out last month? He said. No explanation. Now I suspect they saw the same cracks you did. A chill moved through me. My firing was not an isolated tantrum. It was part of a structure that had been rotting long before this morning. Leonard leaned forward. If Harrington West collapses under its own decisions, are you prepared to walk away from it entirely and build something healthier? I did not answer aloud. I did not need to. My silence told him everything. Leonard sat back, his expression calmer now, as if a decision had already settled inside him. Josie, I have been watching you navigate storms not of your making for years, he said. You never cut corners. You never hid the truth to save yourself. People like you do not just manage money. You safeguard it. I folded my hands in my lap. That is what the job required. No, he said. That is what integrity required, and integrity is rarer than capital. He paused long enough for me to feel the weight of the moment. Then he continued. I am withdrawing my $2 billion from Harrington West. Not tomorrow, not next quarter. Today. My breath slipped out. Leonard. He raised a hand gently. I am not finished. I plan to use that same $2 billion to build something new, an investment arm built on ethics and transparency, not vanity projects and inflated numbers, and I want you to lead it with me. The words struck harder than the firing had. Lead it, Leonard? I just lost my job. My reputation may not survive this morning. Your reputation is the reason I am doing this, he replied. Long before Colton made you a target, I saw how clients trusted you, how you understood risk more deeply than the people writing the models. You are the kind of leader people follow without being told to. I stared down at my hands, feeling the conflict twist through me. 15 years of loyalty, 15 years of building something I thought I belonged to, and they had thrown me out in the span of a single sentence. You do not have to answer now, Leonard said. Take one night. Think about your mother, your daughter. Think about what you could build if no one stood in your way. I looked up, finding him watching me with quiet certainty. He had already made his choice. The next choice was mine. By the time I woke the next morning, Leonard had already acted. My phone buzzed with 3 messages from former colleagues, each one more frantic than the last. Before I could respond, Leonard called. It is done, he said. The full $2 billion has been withdrawn. The board received official notice at 7 o'clock. I sat on the edge of my bed. How did they respond? With panic, he replied. As expected, within an hour. The story spread through Denver's financial circles. Rumors swirled of emergency calls, board members scrambling for explanations, and analysts trying to understand why the firm's most reliable investor had walked away so abruptly. Colton tried to strike first. He sent a mass internal email claiming I had mishandled investor relations, jeopardizing the deal. He framed himself as the one trying to prevent further damage. Leonard forwarded the email to me with a short note. Watch this. He then sent the same email to the board along with a private memo he had kept for weeks. It contained timestamps of Colton canceling meetings, altering communication chains, and pressuring Leonard to route all inquiries through him. Alone. Every attempt at manipulation was documented. By noon, the board called an emergency session. Leonard's memo circulated quietly among senior partners. No one defended Colton. No one could. At 2 o'clock, another message lit up my screen. It was from William, the security guard. He is gone, Josie. They made it public. Effective immediately. Colton had been escorted out of the same lobby where I had stood only a day earlier, clutching a box, and trying not to let my hands shake. This time, no one looked away. The truth had finally spoken louder than the person who tried to bury it. By the end of the week, Harrington West was unrecognizable. A restructuring announcement went out before sunrise, followed by a terse memo confirming that the CEO would be transitioning out of his role. No one believed it was voluntary. Shareholders had demanded accountability, and the board had chosen survival over loyalty. Colton's name began circulating through Denver's financial district with a tone that was half disbelief, half dark humor. I overheard someone on the light rail mutter, "That is the coffee calamity heir," as if the story had already become urban folklore. Former coworkers reached out, some cautiously, some tearfully. Marcy called first. "I just wanted to say thank you," she whispered, "for telling him the truth, for standing your ground. We all saw what he was doing, but none of us could say anything." Another analyst messaged me, "You did not burn anything down. You exposed a fuse." Someone else wrote words that steadied something inside me. Leonard met me in his temporary workspace 2 days later. He slid a folder across the table. "This is the formal offer. Executive Director, full authority to build the team you want." My hands trembled as I signed. A career I had thought was ending was beginning again, and this time on ground that was finally solid. I visited my mother with a bouquet of soft pink roses. She looked up from her chair, confused for a moment, then smiled when she recognized my voice. "You sound lighter," she said. "I think I am," I replied, sitting beside her. That night my daughter called. The moment I told her I had accepted a new role, she started crying. a mix of relief and pride that warmed my chest. When I hung up, I realized that stepping into leadership meant creating something stronger than the place that had shattered around me. On my first morning at the new firm, I found myself thinking back to that lobby, the marble floor, the box against my ribs, the disbelief sitting heavy in my throat. At the time, it felt like everything I had built was slipping through my fingers. Now, standing in a quiet conference room with Leonard reviewing our first set of projects, I understood that the only thing I had carried out of Harrington West was the thing they tried hardest to ignore: my integrity. Leonard set a folder in front of me. "This is yours to lead," he said. "Start wherever you think the foundation needs to be." I nodded, settling into the chair that still felt new beneath me. "I want the team to understand why honesty matters here. I will not allow anyone to use fear to shut people down." "That is exactly why I chose you," Leonard said. His tone held no grand announcement, just steady trust. Later that morning, the first candidate walked into my office, an analyst named Priya, who had crossed paths with me years ago. "I heard you're building something different," she said. "I want to be part of that." "Then you're welcome here," I replied. "No one succeeds alone," she smiled, and I saw the first thread of the culture I hoped to weave: people who showed up because they believed in the work, not the politics. By midday, I took a breath and let the weight of the past week settle. The downfall of Harrington West had never been my mission, but truth has a way of rearranging the world without needing permission. I did not break the firm. The firm broke under the choices it made long before I ever spilled that cup of coffee. The lesson I carried with me, deeper than any title, deeper than any deal, was simple. When someone tries to reduce your worth, the most powerful response is to build a life where their opinion no longer decides your future. Dot.